Now, Bianco Research President Jim Bianco. Jim, good to see you. So the European Union says testing passengers from China is unjustified, although France and Italy are. However, on those two flights that went from China to Milan, and nearly half of the passengers did test positive for COVID-19, they then took the specimens and sequenced them. And Jim, they didn't show any new strains of the virus. So where do you come in with this mandating of testing of incoming travelers from China?
Well, I understand it because that's how COVID began in the spring of 2020. It was sick people leaving China, and that could be both Chinese nationals and foreign nationals that were visiting China that picked up the disease and left, that infected the rest of the world. And now that China has basically thrown open the doors and said there's no more restrictions, we're not even going to give you daily reporting on who's sick. Yeah, the rest of the world's got a reason to be skeptical about China and to be, keep them at an arm's length relationship. So I'm not surprised that this is happening.
It was a complete 180 by Beijing. It truly was. I hesitate to ask this, but I'm curious your reaction. Should we just close the border, at least temporarily, with China?
I don't necessarily think we need to close the border with China, but I think, I'm primarily a financial analyst, and from that perspective, I think what you're going to find is this complete 180 in Wall Street's belief that, oh, good, everybody's going to go back to work in China. They're going to be working overtime, making iPhones and everything else, and they're going to flood the rest of the world with stuff. That means inflation will come down, the Fed could pivot, and the stock market could go up. Never works that way.
Why not?
I think really because it's a lot more complicated. People were not complaining in China about zero COVID because they wanted to go back to work making iPhones. They were complaining that they wanted democracy and they wanted an end of censorship. That's what they want. They didn't want to get back to work. And that and they want democracy and an end of censorship is going to continue. And that's why it's going to be a lot more complicated. And I think we need to foster and encourage that in China. And by closing the border, we don't foster and encourage that. So we need to have some kind of proper restrictions on them. But we also need to understand what it was that the public was asking for last month when they closed the border, or when they closed down.
See, I put it in your head. I put it in your head.
Yes, you did.
So then this, Jim, is an ideological revolution going on in China, and Wall Street is taking note. But I was looking at your notes, and you say that Wall Street and the Chinese Communist Party are aligned. They seem very much unaligned to me. Explain.
No, they're aligned that they want to believe that this is about everybody wanting to go back to work. They want to believe that this is about end zero COVID, everybody back to the factory, making things, believing that there will be a second half rebound in the Chinese economy that will then benefit the rest of the world, that will benefit lower inflation and all of that. And all I'm trying to say was it's a lot more complicated, just like it was previous to this. In 2019, we had the extension of the umbrella revolution in Hong Kong. That was getting some serious traction. And how did the Chinese deal with that? In 2020, they locked down Hong Kong because of COVID, and that ended that revolution. They did that last month. Everybody was complaining about democracy. That's it. We're going to let the virus rip, and everybody's afraid to leave their home now, so there's no more protests.
Amazing. Jim, thank you. Interesting perspective. We do appreciate it. Happy New Year.
Thank you.